Yeah, back in the day, there was young Frankie Frazer, the old man Frazer, Jack the Hat McVitie, and Jimmy Andrews. They was all in Wandsworth Prison. And at that time, Wandsworth Prison was giving out the Birch and the Cat and Nine Tails. It was just one of the things that was happening in big prisons like Wandsworth. And anyway, Jack the Hat had come down to see someone. The screw started on him, and he just effed and blinded him. And Wandsworth in them days was a bad prison. I mean, most of the screws in them days were military, ex-MPs, big screws, horrible screws that bash you up for nothing. And they steamed into McVitie. And McVitie could have a fight, you know. He could have a right fight and steam back into them. And before you know where, the whistle was blowing and screws were coming from everywhere, yeah. And Frazer and what you call it, and Jimmy Edwards was coming down the landing, but up on the next landing up, yeah. And they see it, and they run down and got involved, yeah. They got involved with the fight with the screws on McVitie, Jack the Hat McVitie, and they steamed into him, yeah. Fair play to Frazer, mate. They reckon Frazer really steamed into the screws. He was battering them, you know what I mean? And eventually, they got about, 30 screws. They was all steaming into them, truncheons. Then they used to use the truncheons really bad, yeah. Smashed them all up, put them in all different cells, empty cells that are already used by other people. Just chucked them in the cells and then come back from them later one at a time and bashed them up and took them down a block and really smashed them to pieces, yeah. And I know that Frazer was an handful, mate. He was a dangerous little fucker, Frazer. I mean, he didn't care for no one. Fair play to you, mate. To steam in like he steamed in. I don't know if Jack the Hat and Vicky, he had it with him as such because he was the craze as such, wasn't he? But and then you had Jimmy Andrews. Jimmy Andrews was an handful. Later on, a lot of things happened to Jimmy Andrews. But Frazer, fair play to you, mate. I love him for that. But going back to again, not going back, going forward. Frank, they hated him in Wandsworth, mate. They really, really hated him in Wandsworth. And Frankie Frazer was so against the screw, so against the system, and they couldn't handle him, mate. They couldn't handle him in Wandsworth. Well, Frankie Frazer is one of the only ones that can walk across the centre. The centre in Wandsworth Prison is, you can't walk, it's like God, you can't walk across that, mate. You can't walk across that centre. It's an impossibility. You're going to get smashed to pieces, yeah? There's a few people tried it, and a few people come out the other end battered, yeah? But Frankie Frazer, they couldn't handle Frank, mate. He was just completely nutcase. They knew the consequences. They might bash him up, but when he come up, he'd steam into any screws and really, really hurt him. So in the end, they're just letting Frank walk across the centre. The only one, there's two that walked across that centre and they didn't give a monkeys. The other one was Roy Shaw, yeah? Roy Shaw was the other one in Wandsworth Prison to walk across the centre. I believe that they steamed into Roy over something. Roy bashed about 5 or 6 screws, really, really bad, yeah? They chucked him down Wandsworth stairs. Wandsworth stairs are like that, yeah? Really, really steep. Chucked him down. They kept him in the block for about, 4 or 5 days. Evidently, Roy Shaw bashed up quite a few screws down the block. And they got a little bit, not frightened of him, but wary of him. And when he come up from the block, right, and they took him round the centre to A wing or B wing or C wing, wherever he was going to, yeah? He went in, and the next day, he walked across the centre, and they'd had enough. They just let it go. They thought, what's the point? You know, what is the point? Let it go. But he's the only one, Frazer and Roy Shaw, that walked across the centre. I remember the two brothers, Davey Old, Johnny Old, yeah, from Albany Prison years ago. When we all got chucked out of Albany Prison, and there was a little bit of trouble in there, this is later on thing. And I was in Wandsworth, mate, Johnny and Davey Old, Johnny and Davey, what's it, David Long, John and David Long, yeah? I think it's John and David. I don't know one of them's David Long, I think it's John, yeah. And they tried that trick, walking across the centre. And that times, they put the gates up on each wing, on the end of the wings, yeah? Or was it? I'm not quite sure, but it might have been because of that they put the gates up. They steamed into them, mate, with truncheons and battered them so bad, black and blue, smashed them to pieces, yeah? And I can remember going on a visit and seeing them being dragged through to their what you call it, a visit. No visits. They got a visit, but it was in a cage in a room, yeah. So I see them, mate. They were smashed to pieces. They were smashed to pieces. And the game, David Long, Johnny Long, the game as game as anything, mate. But anyway, the screw steered into them. And later on, when they come up, right, I think it was David that got a chair or a table leg and steamed into about 5 or 6 screws around the centre, really bashed them up bad, yeah. And he just disappeared. No one ever see him again. He just went. I don't know where he went. Obviously, they bashed him up to death, threw him down the stairs and smashed him. But that was Wandsworth. He might have been shipped out to another nick or what. But Wandsworth was the worst prison in London at that time. That Strange Ways was bad, but Wandsworth was really, really bad. I mean, they broke so many people in Wandsworth, mate. Broke them up. And anyway, I think it was Frank and Jack Yapman and Vicky, and also Jimmy Andrews. They got the birch. I think it was the birch or the cat and nine tails they got at that time. It was in Wandsworth, and they was like just giving it nitty gritty. There was a big thing in Wandsworth at that time. I think Frazer got about 17. I think Jack the Hat got about 9 or 10. And I think Jimmy Andrews got about that 7 or 8, something like that. They all got the cat and nine tails or the birch, but I don't think there's a lot of difference in it. But they really smashed them with it, you know what I mean? Because they steamed into the screws and they really battered them with it, you know, not just like look, they really smashed them to pieces. And it wasn't long after that that they stopped it. The birch in Cat 9. So they stopped it, I think, in 1961. I checked it, 1961. I think they stopped it in all prisons. Listen, mate, when I was in Borstal, they used to whack you to death with these rubber things, these big rubber things, smash you to pieces, mate. I mean, that was just as bad, really. I mean, Cat and Nine Tails, they might have done it with Cat and Nine Tails, I can't really remember, but I can remember being smashed to pieces with these big rubber things, yeah? Smash it to pieces. Don't go and say whatever you're going to say. I know you're going to say, but anyway. Yeah, but then I'm going to look at down to Peter Kelly. I mean, Peter Kelly in Wandsworth Prison, mate, he was doing screws like nitty gritty. He was doing them with the little aluminium piss pot. In Wandsworth in them days, it was aluminium, the piss pot with the little lids on it, yeah? And people used to have to poo in that and wee in it. It's ridiculous when you get 2, 3 up in a cell, maybe even 4. You know, they don't care, mate. They don't give a monkey's what goes on. But Peter Kelly had enough of these screws doing this, what he could do, and he used to come out in the morning and do them with a piss pot every morning, without fail. And they steamed in and drag him back to the cell. But one particular morning he come out and done it. They was waiting for him. They knew that it was going to go on. And they steamed into him about 8 or 9, and then Peter Kelly was a big man, mate. He could have a right fight. He wasn't a fool. They got into him, steamed into him. They took him down the metal staircase in Wandsworth, struggled him down the metal staircase, and it was the rattle, yeah. And they was bashing him all around his groin, smashed him to pieces. It chucked him down the stairs. Going to the chokey. They battered him, chucked him in a cell, left him in a cell. The next day, he come out, he done the exact same thing, done the screws, the piss, but he didn't care. He didn't care, Peter. He did not care, mate. Refused the food, chucked the food at him. He just went crazy. He just hated it, mate. The way the regime was in Wandsworth Prison, mate. You're treated like a dog. A dog gets treated better than what you do, yeah. And in them days, it was bad, yeah. And this is what Peter Kelly told me. Peter Kelly told me this in Albany. That the number one chief knocked on Kelly's door in the block saying, Peter, it's the number one chief here. I'm going to open the door. I want to come in and talk to you. And Peter Kelly said, fuck off, really went mad. He went, listen, I think you best listen to what I've got to say, yeah? So he opened the door, 3 or 4 screws around the chief, because he's in charge, isn't he? And they've all got the truncheons out ready for anything from Peter Kelly. And this is what the chief said to Peter Kelly. The chief said to Peter Kelly, listen, this is the last time, Peter Kelly, that you chuck poo or wee over my officers. The last time. Today is the last day. Let me tell you. In Wandsworth Prison, I am the number one chief. I run this prison. I can tell the doctor to write out a death certificate and get away with it, Peter Kelly, and get away with it, write out a death certificate with your name, and that'd be it. And you'd just be put in a box, Peter Kelly, and buried in Wandsworth grounds. What do you want, Peter Kelly? I reckon Peter told me that he pooed himself there and then. He pooed himself there and then, and the governor and what chief said to Peter Kelly, a couple of days, Peter Kelly, I'm going to chuck you out this nick, yeah? And it was the next day, Peter Kelly, they come in his cell, dragged him out of his cell, mate, took him down to the reception and put him on a bus by himself to Albany Prison. Yeah, and that's when I met him. I mean, Peter Kelly, mate, big man. I mean, there aren't many people can tell a story about that better than Peter Kelly did. There's loads of people that have gone to Wandsworth Prison and been battered in Wandsworth Prison. You know what I mean? But battered, smashed to pieces. I mean, really, really smashed to pieces. Because Wandsworth in them days, they didn't muck about. I mean, I remember one screw, I have said it before, Taffy Ryan. Ryan was a no good man, mate. He was a paddy, and he was just I think he was paddy. He was Irish, about the worst screw in Wandsworth Prison. He loved trouble, he loved causing aggro, he loved nicking people, and in them days you had the governor in Wandsworth Prison was called the Beast, and and that was it. He was called the Beast, and the Beast was the Beast, yeah. And when he said to Frazer, thank you, Frazer, about something he'd done, he'd done something in Wandsworth. He's gone down a jokey, and the governor, called the Beast, said to Frankie Frazer, listen, you don't call my officers liars. My officers don't lie. If my officer said to me that you was driving around in a moped around the ring, I believe them. And not only would I believe them, I'd want to know where you got the petrol to work it. Frazer, don't underestimate my officers and don't underestimate me. Yeah. And Frazer said to him, that's your name, beast by name, beast by nature. That's you. And he hated him. He hated him so much so that one day the governor of Wandsworth Prison was walking round the green by Wandsworth Prison with his dog. Frazer was waiting for it, mate. He got hold of the governor, battered the governor. Obviously they was all masked up and all that. Battered the governor, hung his dog up on a tree, hung by the lead, hung his dog up by the tree until dead. Frazer, man, was an handful. I've got to say about Frank, he was an handful. He was a very dangerous man. I know a lot of people said they was to call him the wolf and all this, that and the other. But no matter what they called him, this man was the dangerous man. I mean, you know, he can't fight it. He couldn't fight. But he didn't have to fight because he was so dangerous that if you beat him, he'd come back and he was absolutely familiar. You know, and it's when I hear stories about when he steamed into the screws in Wandsworth with Jack the Hat McVitie is it, and Jimmy Andrews, and they all steamed into the screws, you know, and to stop McVitie getting bashed up by the screws. I mean, Frazer got bashed up, Jimmy Andrews got bashed up, but they proved the point. You know what I mean? They proved the point. The point is we stick together. You know, like they do in Wandsworth, all the screws in Wandsworth stick together, but they're cowards, yeah? Because when they come in 30-handed, and they're coming in to really hurt you, you know what I mean? And it's always the same. Wandsworth Prison, mate, they're always the same. But what I will say about Wandsworth, I did see it in the scrubs, and I did see it, I never see it in Wandsworth because I wasn't around in Wandsworth in them times, but I was in scrubs at them times when screws would take their hat off, big MP screws could have a right fight, right, and get in a cell with you and have a row, you know, and when whoever come out on top, you know, if a screw got battered in the cell, you know, and got dragged out, but it wouldn't end there, would it? They come back later on, but what a result, isn't it, to go for a screw to come in the cell, have a row with you, that's the greatest thing in the world. Imagine how you feel bashing him up. Anyway, it never happened to me. I mean, never happened to me at all that game. But I mean, this is just a little video, and it's bang bang mail, and have a nice day. Yeah, nice one. Bye bye.